The storm hit the mountains like an angry giant throwing boulders against the peaks. Marcus Kane pressed his face against the frosted window of his cabin, watching pine trees bend impossibly far in the howling wind. These remote mountains had taught him to read nature's moods, but tonight felt different. Tonight felt dangerous in ways that had nothing to do with weather. Lightning split the darkness, illuminating his small world for brief moments before plunging everything back into shadow. Marcus had chosen this isolation after his military service ended badly, after friends died because of decisions he made. The silence of the wilderness was supposed to heal him, but some wounds ran deeper than mountain streams. A sound cut through, the storm's fury that made his blood freeze. 3 soft knocks on his door, barely audible above the wind. Marcus grabbed the rifle from above his fireplace, his military training flooding back instantly. Nobody lived within 50 miles of this place. Nobody should be able to find his cabin in weather like this. The knocking came again, weaker this time. Marcus approached the door carefully, weapon ready. Through the peephole, he saw nothing but swirling snow and darkness. Then lightning flashed again, and he glimpsed something that made him lower his rifle immediately. A child stood on his porch, small and fragile against the storm's violence. A little girl with long dark hair plastered to her face by wind and rain. She wore a thin jacket that offered no protection against the mountain cold, and her lips looked blue, even in the dim light. Marcus threw open the door. The child stumbled inside, nearly collapsing from exhaustion. Ice crystals covered her clothes, and she shivered so violently that her teeth chattered like castanets.
No.
But her eyes caught his attention most of all. They were ancient eyes, far too knowing for someone so young. "Please," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I need help. Stella is coming, but the bad men are following us." Marcus wrapped her in blankets and sat her near the fireplace, his protective instincts overwhelming his caution. The child couldn't be more than 8 years old, but she carried herself with unusual composure for someone who had just survived a deadly storm. "What's your name?" he asked, handing her a cup of warm tea. "Luna," she replied, pulling something from inside her jacket. It was a pendant made of strange metal that seemed to shift colors in the firelight. Ancient symbols covered its surface, and Marcus felt an odd sensation looking at them, as if they were trying to tell him something important. "Who is Stella?" Marcus asked, settling into the chair across from her. Luna's expression grew worried. "She's my guardian. We were traveling together when the storm started. She told me to run ahead and find shelter while she handled the men who were chasing us. She promised she would find me, but that was hours ago." The child spoke with intelligence beyond her years, using words and phrases that seemed too sophisticated. For someone so young, Marcus had worked with enough refugees during his military service to recognize the signs of trauma. But Luna showed none of the typical behaviors. Instead, she seemed to be protecting secrets rather than processing fear. "These men who were chasing you," Marcus said carefully, "do you know what they wanted?" Luna touched the pendant at her throat. They want this very badly. Says it's important that it contains information about people who lived long ago. She's been studying it for years, trying to understand what it means. Outside, the storm continued its assault on the mountains, but Marcus barely noticed. Child's story raised more questions than answers. Who was this Stella person, and why was someone pursuing her so aggressively? What made an old pendant worth chasing people through a deadly storm? Luna curled up in the chair, finally looking like the scared child she actually was. The pendant caught the firelight again, and Marcus noticed that some of the symbols seemed to move when he wasn't looking directly at them. It had to be tricks of light and shadow, but the effect was unsettling. "Luna," he said gently, "how did you find my cabin? It's not marked on any maps." The girl looked up at him with those two eyes. "The pendant gets warm when we're going the right direction. It led me here. Stella taught me to trust it when we're in danger." Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the storm outside. Either this child was an exceptional storyteller, or she was carrying something that defied rational explanation. His scientific mind rejected the supernatural implications, but his soldier's instincts told him to take the threat seriously regardless of its source. A new sound penetrated the storm's noise. the distant rumble of vehicle engines struggling up the mountain road. Marcus moved to the window and saw headlights cutting through the darkness below, still miles away, but definitely heading toward his cabin. "They found us," Luna whispered, clutching the pendant tighter. Stella said they would never give up. Marcus made a decision that would change his carefully ordered life forever. He grabbed his emergency pack and winter gear, then knelt beside Luna's chair. "We're leaving," he said firmly.
Else?
"There's an old mining tunnel about a mile north of here. We can wait there until your Stella arrives or until it's safe to move again." Luna nodded without question, showing trust that amazed him. Most children would have been terrified, but she seemed to accept danger as a normal part of her existence. As they prepared to leave, Marcus caught himself wondering what kind of life this little girl had lived to develop such resilience. The pendant pulsed with warm light as they stepped into the storm. It's almost as if it approved of their escape route. Marcus told himself it was coincidence, but deep down, he was beginning to suspect that nothing about this night would have rational explanations. The mining tunnel carved into the mountainside felt like stepping into the Earth's frozen heart. Marcus guided Luna through the entrance, their flashlights creating dancing shadows on the rough stone walls. The air smelled of old metal and ancient darkness, but it offered shelter from both the storm and their pursuers. Luna sat on a boulder while Marcus secured the entrance with fallen rocks, making it look natural while still allowing them to escape, if necessary. The pendant around her neck glowed softly in the tunnel's darkness, providing enough light to see by without using their flashlights and potentially giving away their position. "How does it do that?" Marcus asked, nodding toward the pendant. Luna touched it gently. "Stella says it remembers things from long ago. It knows when there's danger and when it's safe. Sometimes it shows me pictures in my dreams." Before Marcus could ask what kind of pictures, another sound echoed through the storm outside. Footsteps crunching through snow, moving with military precision. Multiple people spreading out to search the area around his cabin. A woman's voice called out, it's barely audible above the wind. "Luna, Luna, where are you?" The child's face lit up with relief. "That's Stella?" Marcus held up a hand for silence. "Wait, how do we know it's really her, and not someone trying to trick you?" Luna closed her eyes and held the pendant tighter. After a moment, she smiled. "Tch! The pendant recognizes her. She's hurt, but she's alone." They emerged from the tunnel to find a woman stumbling through the snow toward them. She was tall and athletic, with shoulder-length auburn hair and striking green eyes that seemed to miss nothing despite her obvious exhaustion. Blood stained her jacket sleeve, and she favored her left leg as she walked. Stella rushed forward and gathered the child in a fierce embrace. "Thank God you're safe. I was so worried when I lost your trail in the storm." Marcus found himself staring at Stella longer than necessary. Even injured and exhausted, she possessed a grace and intelligence that drew his attention like a magnet. When she looked up at him, her eyes held depths of knowledge and determination that matched Luna's ancient wisdom. "You must be the one who helped her," Stella said, extending her uninjured hand. "I'm Dr. Stella Voss. I can't thank you enough for protecting Luna." "Marcus Kane," he replied, shaking her hand and feeling an unexpected jolt of electricity at the contact. "Doctor of what?" "Archaeological anthropology, with a specialty in pre-Columbian civilizations." Stella winced as she shifted her weight. "But right now, I'm more interested in survival than research." Marcus helped her into the tunnel while Luna led the way with her glowing pendant. Once they were safely inside, he examined Stella's injuries. By flashlight, the arm wound was a graze from a bullet, already clotting but needing proper cleaning. Her leg showed signs of a bad fall, possibly twisted but not broken. "Who's chasing you?" Marcus asked as he cleaned her wounds with supplies from his emergency kit. Stella glanced at Luna, who was exploring deeper into the tunnel with her pendant held high like a torch. "A man named Victor Blackwood. Claims to be a private collector of antiquities, but he's really something much more dangerous. He has unlimited resources and no moral boundaries. And he wants the pendant. He wants what the pendant can lead him to." Stella's voice grew heavy with worry. "Luna is the only person who can fully interpret the symbols. She has a gift that manifests differently than normal linguistic ability. Victor discovered this somehow, and now he's determined to use her. Marcus felt protective anger rising in his chest. Use an 8-year-old child for what? To find the source, Luna said, returning from her exploration. The pendant is like a key, but I'm the one who can turn it. There's a place hidden in these mountains where people like me used to live long ago. People who could understand the old language without learning it. The child's matter, of-fact explanation of impossible abilities, should have sounded like fantasy. But the pendant's continued glow and Marcus's own growing intuition told him to accept what he couldn't explain. How long have you been running from this, Victor? Marcus asked. 3 months, Stella replied. Ever since Luna's abilities fully manifested, we've been moving constantly, trying to stay ahead of his search teams. I thought we had lost them. In Colorado? But they tracked us here somehow. The pendant called us to the mountains, Luna added. It knew we needed to come here, even though Stella thought it was dangerous. Marcus looked between the woman and child, seeing how they completed each other's sentences and communicated with glances. They had formed a family unit forged by necessity and mutual protection. Stella's love for Luna was obvious in every protective gesture, while Luna's trust in Stella was absolute. My cabin is compromised, Marcus said, making another life-changing decision, but I know these mountains better than anyone. There are places we can hide until Victor gives up and moves on. You don't understand, Stella said, touching his arm with unconscious intimacy. Victor never gives up. He has government connections, military contractors, and enough money to hire an army. If you help us, you'll become a target too. Looked into her green eyes and saw fear, not for herself, but for him. She was trying to protect him from the consequences of getting involved. But as he watched Luna absently studying the tunnel walls with her pendant, finding carved symbols that had been invisible until her strange light revealed them, he realized that some things were worth any risk. I spent 8 years in special forces, he said quietly. I know how to deal with dangerous men, and Luna reminds me of kids I tried to help overseas. Kids who deserved protection, but didn't get it because adults failed them. Stella's expression softened. You don't know what you're offering to take on. Then tell me, Marcus replied, moving closer to her. Tell me everything and let me decide if I'm brave enough to help. The pendant flared brighter, and Luna looked up from the ancient symbols with excitement. The people who lived here before, they left messages. The pendant is teaching me to read them. They're saying something about a hidden city, somewhere deeper in the mountains. Outside the tunnel, new sounds drifted through the storm. Vehicle doors slamming, radio chatter, the organized movement of a search team. Victor Blackwood had arrived and their window of safety was rapidly closing. Stella looked at Marcus with desperate hope. If you're serious about helping us, we need to leave now. There's a place the pendant has been guiding us toward, but it's days of travel through terrain that could kill us. Marcus shouldered his pack and checked his rifle. Ow. Then, we better get started. Dawn broke gray and bitter over the mountains as Victor Blackwood's helicopter circled the abandoned cabin like a predatory bird. Marcus watched from a ridge 2 miles away, using binoculars to study the search team systematically combing the area below. 12 men in military gear, moving with professional efficiency that confirmed Stella's warnings about their pursuers' resources. He brought more people this time, Stella observed, sharing the binoculars. Her injured arm was in a makeshift sling, but she seemed stronger after a few hours of rest in the mining tunnel. Luna sat between them, the pendant spread across her palm like a living compass. The symbols on its surface shifted constantly now, forming patterns that seemed to indicate direction and distance. It's getting excited, she said, with the calm acceptance of a child who had learned to trust impossible things. We're getting closer to where it wants us to go. Marcus studied their position on his topographic map. They were high in the Sangre de Cristo range, with terrain ahead that would challenge even experienced mountaineers. But the alternative was letting Victor capture Luna, and that wasn't an option he could accept. There's a game trail that leads north through the valley, he said, tracing the route with his finger. It's rough going, but it keeps us below the tree line and out of sight from aerial surveillance. Stella moved closer to see the map, and Marcus caught her scent soap and pine mixed with something uniquely her own. She had removed her jacket to tend her wounds, revealing a fitted thermal shirt that showed her athletic build. When she leaned against him to study the terrain, he felt awareness spark between them like static electricity. "How long to reach this valley?" she asked, seemingly unaware of the effect her proximity was having on him. 6 hours if we push hard, Marcus replied, forcing himself to focus on tactical planning instead of the way her auburn hair caught the morning light. "But Luna will need frequent rest stops." "I can keep up," Luna said with quiet determination. "The pendant gives me strength when I need it." They moved out as Victor's search teams began expanding their perimeter. Marcus led them along deer paths and stream beds, using every trick he had learned in hostile territory to avoid detection. Stella proved to be surprisingly capable in the wilderness, moving quietly, despite her injuries, and helping Luna navigate difficult terrain without complaint. As they climbed higher into the mountains, Marcus found himself stealing glances at Stella. She had tied her hair back with a piece of cord, revealing the elegant line of her neck. Her intelligence was obvious in the way she read the landscape, anticipating obstacles and adjusting their route accordingly. But it was her devotion, too, Luna, that truly impressed him, the way she constantly checked on the child's condition, shared her water without being asked, and offered encouragement during difficult climbs. "You're staring," Stella said quietly during a rest stop, her green eyes holding amusement rather than annoyance. Marcus felt heat rise in his cheeks. "Sorry, I was just thinking about how well you handle the wilderness for an archaeologist." "I've spent years on digs in remote locations," she replied, settling beside him on a fallen log. "You learn to adapt, or you don't survive, though I have to admit being chased by armed mercenaries is a new experience." Luna sat nearby, holding the pendant up to catch sunlight and watching the symbols dance across its surface. "To take me on easy expeditions," she said without looking up. "Before the pendant started working for me, we would look for old pottery and arrowheads. It was fun." "How did you two meet?" Marcus asked, genuinely curious about their unusual relationship. Stella's expression grew distant. "Luna's parents were colleagues of mine, brilliant researchers who were working on translating an ancient language when they died in a car accident. 2 years ago, Luna had been showing signs of unusual abilities, so they asked me to be her guardian if anything happened to them. They knew about the pendant. They found it, but they couldn't activate it. Only Luna can do that." Stella watched the child with protective affection. Her parents believed she was genetically linked to whatever civilization created these artifacts, descendant of people who had abilities we don't understand. Marcus absorbed this information while scanning the valley below for signs of pursuit. The idea of genetic memory and inherited abilities challenged everything he thought he knew about human potential. But Luna's demonstrations were becoming harder to dismiss as coincidence. "There," Luna said suddenly, pointing toward a distant mountain peak. "The pendant is pulling toward that mountain. There's something there it wants to find." The peak she indicated was Mount Elbert, one of Colorado's highest summits. Reaching it would require days of dangerous climbing through terrain that could kill them, even without human enemies pursuing them. But as Marcus studied the mountain through his binoculars, he noticed something odd about its profile, a regularity to certain rock formations that looked almost artificial. "We need to find shelter for the night," he said, shouldering his pack. "There's a ranger station about 3 miles ahead that was abandoned last season. We can rest there and plan our approach to the mountain." As they resumed their trek, Stella fell into step beside him. Their shoulders brushed occasionally as they navigated narrow sections of trail, and Marcus found himself anticipating each point of contact. When she stumbled on loose rocks, he caught her arm, and she leaned into him longer than necessary for balance. "Thank you," she said softly, looking up at him with an expression that seemed to hold more meaning than simple gratitude. "For what?" "For taking us seriously. For believing Luna's abilities are real instead of dismissing them as children's stories. For putting yourself in danger to help strangers." Marcus met her gaze, seeing vulnerability beneath her composed exterior. "I don't think you're strangers anymore." They reached the ranger station as afternoon shadows began lengthening across the valley. The building was empty but secure, offering protection from both weather and observation.
Oh.
Marcus checked the perimeter while Stella helped Luna settle in. And when he returned, he found them cooking a simple meal over a camping stove. "Domestic bliss," he said, accepting a cup of coffee. Stella smiled. "It's the little moments of normalcy that keep us sane when everything else is chaos." As evening fell, they took turns keeping watch while the others rested. During Marcus's shift, Stella joined him on the station's observation deck, wrapping herself in a blanket against the mountain cold. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "Too much adrenaline still in my system?" She moved closer, sharing the blanket's warmth. "Also, I keep thinking about what happens next. Even if we find whatever the pendant is leading us to, Victor won't stop hunting." Marcus put his arm around her shoulders, telling himself it was just to share body heat. "We'll figure it out." Stella relaxed against him, her head resting on his shoulder. "I haven't felt safe in months. But being with you, I can almost forget we're running for our lives." The confession hung between them, charged with possibility. Marcus turned to look. At her, seeing moonlight reflected in her green eyes, she was close enough that he could feel her breath against his face. Close enough that kissing her would require only the slightest movement. "Stella," he began, but she pressed a finger against his lips. "I know this is complicated," she whispered. "Everything about our situation is impossible. But I can't stop thinking about what might happen between us if we survive this." Marcus captured her hand, holding it against his cheek. "Then let's make sure we survive." They sat together in comfortable silence, watching stars emerge above the mountain peaks. Inside the station, Luna slept peacefully, the pendant glowing softly beside her like a nightlight. For a few precious hours, they could pretend they were just two people falling in love instead of fugitives racing toward an uncertain destiny. But in the distance, the sound of helicopter rotors reminded them that Victor Blackwood was still hunting. Their window of safety was closing fast. The ancient cave system Marcus discovered behind a waterfall felt like stepping into another world. Water cascaded past the hidden entrance, creating a curtain that concealed them from any aerial surveillance while providing access to a network of passages that honeycombed the mountain's interior. Luna's pendant blazed with light as they entered the caves, illuminating walls covered with intricate carvings that seemed to dance in the shifting glow. The symbols were similar to those on her pendant, but far more complex, telling stories in a language that predated known human civilization. "This is it," Luna whispered, her voice filled with awe. "This is what the pendant wanted us to find." Stella examined the carvings with professional fascination, running her fingers over stonework that showed impossible precision. These weren't made with primitive tools. The craftsmanship rivals anything from ancient Egypt or Greece, but the style is completely unique. Marcus secured the cave entrance while studying the main chamber they had discovered. It was vast, with multiple passages leading deeper into the mountain. Ancient channels carved into the floor suggested sophisticated drainage systems, and air circulation patterns indicated the caves had been designed for long-term habitation. "People lived here," he observed. "It's not just temporary shelter, but a permanent settlement." Luna wandered among the carved walls, the pendant's light revealing new details with each step. "They were like me," she said with quiet certainty. "They could understand the old language without learning it. They could make the stones remember things." As if responding to her words, some of the carvings began to glow with their own inner light. Images appeared to move across the stone surfaces, showing scenes of daily life in an advanced civilization that had somehow vanished from all historical records. Stella gasped as the ancient stone movie played across the walls. "This is impossible. Stone doesn't have memory, can't store information like this. Maybe our understanding of what's possible needs updating," Marcus suggested, watching Luna interact with the glowing symbols as if she were reading a familiar book. They established camp in a side chamber that offered both security and access to fresh water from an underground stream as night fell outside their hidden sanctuary. They shared a meal while Luna continued exploring the cave art with fascinated intensity. "She's changing," Stella observed, watching the child decode ancient messages with growing confidence. "Her abilities are getting stronger the closer we get to this place." Marcus had noticed it too. Luna seemed more mature, more aware of her own capabilities. The pendant responded to her touch with increasing sensitivity, and she moved through the caves as if following a familiar map rather than exploring unknown territory. "Are you worried about what she's becoming?" he asked. Stella was quiet for a long moment. "I'm worried about what Victor will do with her abilities if he catches us. The power she's manifesting could be incredibly dangerous in the wrong hands." Outside their sanctuary, the sound of helicopter rotors echoed off the mountain peaks. Victor's search teams were getting closer, methodically examining every possible hiding place in their expanding perimeter. "We're running out of places too." "Run," Marcus said, checking his rifle and calculating their remaining ammunition. "Eventually, he's going to find us." Stella moved closer to him in the firelight, her expression troubled. "There's something I haven't told you about Victor, something that makes this personal." Marcus waited, sensing the importance of whatever she was about to reveal. "He was my research partner 5 years ago," she continued. "We were lovers, and I trusted him completely, till I discovered he was selling artifacts to private collectors instead of preserving them for scientific study. When I confronted him, he threatened to destroy my career if I exposed him." The confession explained the haunted look that sometimes crossed Stella's face when Victor's name was mentioned. "That's why you're so afraid of him." "Not afraid for myself," she clarified. "Afraid of what he'll do to Luna. Victor has no moral limits when he wants something. He'll use her abilities until they burn her out, then discard her like a broken tool." Marcus reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers. "That's not going to happen, not while I'm alive to prevent it." Stella looked at him with an expression that mixed gratitude with something deeper. "Why are you doing this? Really? You could have walked away at any point, but you keep choosing to stay with us." The honest answer was complicated, involving his need for redemption, his protective instincts, and his growing feelings for both Luna and Stella. But looking into her green eyes, he decided on simple truth. "Because I'm falling in love with you," he said quietly. "And because Luna deserves someone who will fight for her." Stella's breath caught. "Marcus, this situation is impossible. We're fugitives with no future except running and hiding." "Then let's change the situation," he replied, moving closer to her. "Let's find a way to stop running." She searched his face in the firelight, looking for certainty in an uncertain world. When she found what she was seeking, she closed the distance between them, kissing him with a passion that spoke of desperation and hope combined. Marcus pulled her against him, tasting the sweetness of her mouth while feeling the strength of her body pressed to his. The kiss deepened as weeks of growing attraction finally found expression, and when they finally separated, both were breathing heavily. "I've wanted to do that since the first night we met," Stella whispered against his lips. "So have I," Marcus replied, stroking her auburn hair. "But I didn't want to complicate things more than they already were." "Everything about our situation is already complicated," she said with a soft laugh. "What's one more impossibility?" They held each other. In the ancient cave, surrounded by the mysteries of a lost civilization, while their own love story began to unfold, Luna's pendant cast dancing shadows on the walls around them, creating an atmosphere of magic and possibility. Later, Stella slept beside him. Marcus kept watch over both his new family and the secrets hidden in stone around them. Tomorrow would bring new dangers as Victor closed his net. But tonight they had found something worth fighting for in each other's arms. The pendant pulsed with gentle light, as if approving of the love growing between its guardians. Deep in the mountain, ancient stones remembered other love stories, other people who had chosen to fight for what mattered most. And in the morning, Luna would reveal the final secret that would change everything they thought they knew about the pendant's true purpose. The final confrontation came at dawn, when Victor Blackwood's voice echoed through the cave system from speakers mounted on assault drones. His words bounced off ancient walls, disturbing the peace they had found in their stone sanctuary. "Dr. Voss, I know you can hear me," Victor's cultured voice announced. "You have something that belongs to me, and I'm prepared to bring this mountain down to retrieve it. Surrender the child, and I'll allow you and your new friend to leave unharmed." Marcus checked his weapons while Stella gathered their gear with efficient urgency. Luna stood before the main wall of carvings, her pendant blazing so brightly it cast sharp shadows throughout the chamber. "He's lying," Luna said with calm certainty. "The stones are telling me his real plan. He wants to use my abilities to open something that should stay closed." "What kind of something?" Marcus asked, though he suspected the answer would be troubling. Luna pressed her palm against the carved wall, and new images appeared in the flowing stone narrative. They showed the same advanced civilization, but now the scenes depicted disaster cities, collapsing, people fleeing, and something dark spreading across the land like a living shadow. "The people who lived here weren't just advanced," Luna explained. "They had abilities like mine, but some of them used their gifts wrongly. They opened doorways to places that contained dangerous things. That's why this civilization disappeared. Had to seal themselves away to prevent the darkness from spreading." Stella studied the stone movie with professional fascination mixed with growing horror. "You're saying this pendant is a key to something that destroyed an entire civilization?" "The pendant is a warning," Luna corrected, "and a lock. The people who came after were supposed to keep it safe and never use it. But Victor found references to its power in other artifacts, and now he wants to unlock what they sealed away." Sound of boots on stone announced that Victor's mercenaries had found their cave entrance. Marcus positioned himself at the chamber's main access point, while Stella and Luna retreated to the deepest part of the ancient space. "Last chance, Stella?" Victor called out, his voice now coming from the passage outside their chamber. "I have 12 armed men and enough explosives to collapse this entire cave system. Don't make this more difficult than necessary." Marcus saw him, then a tall, distinguished man in expensive outdoor gear, flanked by soldiers carrying military-grade weapons. Victor Blackwood moved with the confidence of someone accustomed to getting what he wanted through superior resources, and absolute ruthlessness. "Hello, darling," Victor said to Stella, his tone suggesting intimate familiarity. "You look well, considering the circumstances. Mountain life agrees with you." "Stay away from her," Marcus warned, aiming his rifle at Victor's center mass. Victor smiled without warmth. "Ah, the protector. How noble. But I'm afraid your feelings are irrelevant to this situation." He gestured to his men, who spread out to cover all possible escape routes. Their positioning was professional, showing no gaps that could be exploited by desperate fugitives. "The pendant, Luna," Victor continued, focusing on the child. "Bring it to me, and no one gets hurt. I simply want to study its capabilities." Luna stepped forward, the pendant pulsing in her hand like a heartbeat. "I know what you really want. The stones showed me your dreams. You want to open the sealed places because you think they contain power you can control?" "Smart girl," Victor replied, "much smarter than the adults who have been protecting you." "Yes, I want power. Specifically, I want the ability to access technologies and knowledge that could reshape human civilization." "That knowledge was sealed for a reason," Stella said, moving to stand beside Luna. "Some things are too dangerous to uncover." Victor's expression hardened. How typical of academics, always afraid of progress, always wanting to preserve the status quo. "I'm offering humanity a chance to evolve beyond its current limitations." Marcus watched the exchange while calculating tactical options. Victor's men were professionals, but they were positioned for intimidation rather than immediate action. They expected surrender, not resistance. "You want to know what the pendant really does?" Luna asked, raising it toward Victor. "Let me show you." The ancient cave erupted with light as every carving on every wall blazed with inner fire. The stone narrative came alive, showing not just the civilization's history, but its ending, the deliberate sacrifice of an entire people to prevent dark powers from consuming their world. Victor stepped back, awed despite himself by the display of impossible technology. Remarkable. The applications for data storage alone would revolutionize computing. "Still don't understand," Luna said sadly. "This isn't technology. It's warning. People who made this place weren't more advanced than us. They were us. In the future. A future where opening the wrong doors led to disaster." The pendant's light intensified, and Marcus felt something change in the air around them. Reality seemed to become fluid, and for a moment he saw glimpses of other times, other places where similar choices had been made. The pendant isn't just a key, Luna continued. It's a memory of all the times people like Victor tried to open what should stay closed. It chooses guardians to keep the seals intact. Victor raised his weapon, his patience finally exhausted. Enough philosophy. Give me the pendant, or I start shooting. Marcus moved faster than thought, tackling Victor before he could fire. They rolled across the cave floor, fighting for control of the weapon while Victor's men shouted commands and tried to get clear shots. Stella grabbed Luna and pressed deeper into the cave system, seeking cover among the ancient passages. The pendant's light followed them, illuminating pathways that hadn't seen human presence for millennia. The gunfight was brief but decisive. Marcus's military training proved superior to mercenary skills, and when the shooting stopped, Victor lay wounded on the stone floor, while his surviving men retreated to regroup. "It's over, Victor," Stella said, returning with Luna to check on Marcus's injuries. "The pendant has been activated. The seals are reinforced. Whatever you hoped to find is beyond your reach now." Victor looked up at them with pain and fury. "This isn't finished. I have resources you can't imagine. I'll find other artifacts, other keys." Luna knelt beside him, her expression filled with compassion, despite everything he had done. "Showed me your real dreams. You're not evil, just lonely. You want power because you think it will make people love you. But love doesn't work that way." She touched Victor's forehead, and for a moment his expression softened as the pendant